I mean, it starts with Fannin, Judy, Shedeur and what he was able to show last year, Deshaun and what he's shown in his past, and Dillon and what he was able to show last year as well. The offensive line obviously is something that we're going to be looking to add to, and in addition to develop, the guys that we have here. With Whippler, possibly Joel. I'm not sure it's certainly going to come up as well, but we're allowing him some time to kind of figure that out. But there's a lot of pieces here to be excited about. It kind of goes on what I said about the quarterback room. I mean, you don't take a job unless you're excited about the people.
Something very interesting is happening inside the building of the Cleveland Browns right now. And if you really listen to what the new coaching staff said when they stepped up to the podium, the message becomes crystal clear. The quarterback situation in Cleveland has quietly taken a dramatic turn. For weeks, people kept talking about competition, about multiple options in the room, about patience and development. But when the coaches finally spoke publicly, the tone sounded very different. Hidden between the polite answers and careful wording was a message that many fans immediately picked up on. The window for Dillon Gabriel may already be closing, while the door for Shedeur Sanders might be opening wider than anyone expected. For a while, the narrative around Cleveland's quarterback room sounded like a balanced battle. Analysts kept repeating that the team had several options. Some believed experience would matter most. Others thought the coaching staff would simply stick with whoever knew the system best. But when you slow down and examine the recent comments coming from inside the organization, the entire picture begins to change. Coaches did mention multiple quarterbacks, yes, but the way they spoke about each one was not equal. The energy changed depending on the name that was brought up. When Shedeur Sanders was mentioned, the tone sounded focused, serious, almost like they were describing the centerpiece of the plan moving forward. When Dillon Gabriel came up, the words sounded softer, more polite, almost like someone being included out of courtesy rather than true expectation. This is exactly why so many fans and analysts immediately started reading between the lines.
Twitter can set the world on fire. One picture. Coach Monken showed a picture of him and Shedeur with the horse trophy, the horse statue had. Did you see this, Chris?
I sure did.
Kalshi lit up the predictions market. Odds via Kalshi, updated every hour. Browns 26 starting quarterback. Shedeur is 44% to start. Deshaun is 35% to start. Dillon Gabriel is 12% to start.
No chance. No chance, buddy.
Mac Jones is 6% to start. Anthony Richardson, 5%. Kyler Murray.
Because in professional football, coaches rarely say things directly when it comes to depth chart decisions. Instead, they speak in subtle signals. They praise work ethic, they mention development, they talk about opportunity. But the structure of their answers tells the real story, and the structure this time made one thing feel obvious. Cleveland might already know who they want leading that offense in the future, and the player whose name keeps floating to the top of that conversation is Shedeur Sanders. Now, think about how surprising this shift actually is. Not long ago, the quarterback discussion in Cleveland looked completely different. There was still uncertainty about how the team would approach the position moving forward. Some believed the organization might slowly rotate players in order to evaluate everyone. Others thought the coaches would lean towards safer options while the roster stabilized. But suddenly, the conversation feels far more decisive. The body language from the coaching staff looked confident when talking about Sanders. The comments from insiders sounded optimistic. Even the media personalities who follow the team closely started saying the same thing. The momentum is moving in one direction. Meanwhile, the situation around Dillon Gabriel feels much more complicated. Gabriel is talented, and nobody inside the organization has publicly attacked his ability. But football is not just about talent. Timing matters, fit matters, coaching philosophy matters. When a new staff walks into a building, they often begin shaping the roster around the type of quarterback they believe can run their offense the best. And sometimes that means certain players suddenly find themselves on the outside of the long-term plan. That does not mean they've failed. It simply means the vision inside the building has changed. And right now, that vision seems to be aligning more and more with Shedeur Sanders. Coaches appear intrigued by his poise, his decision-making, and the way he handles pressure in big moments. Teammates have quietly mentioned his confidence. Observers have noticed how comfortable he looks commanding the offense during practice sessions. These are the kinds of details organizations pay attention to when deciding who should lead a team. Because playing quarterback in the NFL is not just about throwing the ball downfield, it is about leadership, composure, and the ability to control the tempo of an entire offense. That is why the recent comments from Cleveland's coaching staff sparked so much discussion across the football world. People could hear the shift happening in real time. The polite words toward Dillon Gabriel sounded like respect for a player still fighting for his place. But the excitement surrounding Shedeur Sanders sounded like something different entirely. It sounded like belief. And belief from a coaching staff can change everything in the NFL. Because once a team starts believing that a certain quarterback can be the future, the entire structure of the roster begins to move in that direction.
Simpson moving up the board, right? But today is a very important episode right now. If you're in the building, hit that like button. If you're in the building, hit that share button. If you're in the building, make sure you comment. And this thing needs to go out because I'm going to give you a definitive reason as to why this thing happens, right? And I'm going to let you know it has more to do, not necessarily with what the quarterback names are. I'm going to give you down to the root of the problem. And if you have always wanted to know what's going on with the Cleveland Browns fan base, why does the local media react certain ways? Why does it always seem like there's this slant to it? I'm going to give it to you today. So you don't have to worry about it no more because I think I'm the perfect person to do it. I've been in this game since, I grew up in the area. I've been a Browns fan, and that's one of the things I can say that a lot of people can't. I've been a Browns fan watching this team since I was young. I've been in the industry. I was one of the forefathers of the internet movement when it comes to making blogs on YouTube. I've done it. I've worked for the Browns radio network. I've done it at all different levels.
So while nothing has been officially announced yet, the signals coming out of Cleveland are getting louder. The quarterback conversation that once looked wide open now feels like it is slowly narrowing toward one name. Fans are noticing it, analysts are discussing it, and the coaching staff's own words are helping paint the picture. The big question now is no longer whether Shedeur Sanders will get an opportunity. The real question is whether the Cleveland Browns are preparing to hand him the keys to the offense much sooner than anyone originally expected. The more this situation unfolds inside the Cleveland Browns building, the more it starts to look like the road is getting very narrow for Dillon Gabriel. Not long ago, his name was still part of the quarterback discussion in Cleveland. Fans were debating whether he might earn a bigger role, analysts were wondering if he could push for playing time, and some people inside the media even believed he could surprise everyone if given the right opportunity. But the tone surrounding Gabriel has shifted quickly, and when that kind of shift happens in the NFL, it usually means something important has changed behind the scenes. Quarterback battles in professional football rarely collapse overnight for no reason. Most of the time, they slowly fade away because the coaching staff begins to lean in a different direction. When a new group of coaches arrives, they evaluate everything from scratch. They watch film, they study how each quarterback processes the field, and they ask a simple question: which player gives our offense the best chance to grow? Once that internal decision starts forming, the ripple effects show up everywhere. In interviews, in practice reps, and in the way coaches describe players publicly. That is exactly what appears to be happening now with Dillon Gabriel. No one inside Cleveland is publicly criticizing him. In fact, the coaches still speak respectfully when his name comes up. That alone tells you Gabriel is viewed as a professional and someone who works hard. But respect and opportunity are two very different things in the NFL. When a coaching staff truly believes a quarterback is part of their future plan, the language becomes much stronger. They talk about leadership, they highlight potential, they describe the player as someone who can drive the offense forward. Those phrases create momentum, and right now, those phrases are being used far more often when the conversation shifts toward Shedeur Sanders. That difference in tone is exactly why analysts started raising eyebrows after the latest press conference. When coaches discussed the quarterback room, Gabriel's name appeared almost as a footnote in the broader conversation. It sounded more like an acknowledgement that he exists in the room rather than a declaration that he is fighting for the top job. Meanwhile, the focus kept circling back towards Sanders and what he could bring to the offense. That contrast may seem subtle to casual viewers, but in NFL circles, those details matter a lot. There is also the reality of how coaching staffs build their offensive identity. Every offensive system has a rhythm. Some coaches prefer quarterbacks who play extremely fast and attack defenses aggressively. Others prefer players who stay calm, read the field patiently, and manage the game with precision. If the coaching staff believes Shedeur Sanders fits their vision more naturally, then the entire evaluation process starts tilting in that direction.
And I think that I've come to a conclusion as to why we are the way we are. And this is going right. It says, where will Kyler Murray land? The Minnesota Vikings. It's a win now and what Kyler Murray wants to be looking at, right? So let's talk about this. Before we can have this type of conversation, before we get to this, there are a couple of things that we're gonna put out that need to really focus on why it is sometimes, unless you have these three statements or these three core tenets, you are never going to be able to have an honest conversation about quarterback in the city of Cleveland. These three things are things that you must, at least at some level, acknowledge and or examine before you can even have a credible conversation with anybody about quarterbacks. If one of these three things are true, it's going to be increasingly hard for you to have a conversation about quarterbacks. It's almost like trying to convince somebody that the world is round. At some point, you don't argue with those folks. It's like saying, it's almost like saying, how do you prove something to somebody who is willfully ignorant? I'm not going to be arguing every day with people about whether the earth is round or flat, because you need a certain basis of reality for you to even be competent. So let's get to this. These are three things that you must consider. And there's a lot of people who don't consider these things when it comes to having an honest conversation about the quarterback before we get to any of this. Premise one.
Once that tilt begins, it becomes very difficult for another quarterback in the room to reverse it. For Dillon Gabriel, this creates a very challenging situation. He entered the environment hoping to compete and prove he could lead the offense. That is the mindset every quarterback must carry when they enter a professional locker room. But competition in the NFL is not always fair or perfectly balanced. Sometimes timing works against a player. Sometimes a coaching staff simply connects more with another quarterback's style. And sometimes the organization begins imagining its future with someone else under center. When that happens, even talented players can find themselves fighting uphill battles that grow steeper every week. That does not mean Gabriel's career is finished or that his abilities have disappeared. The NFL is full of examples where quarterbacks change teams and suddenly find a better fit elsewhere. Different systems highlight different strengths. A player who struggles to find opportunity in one building might walk into another locker room and immediately thrive. But inside Cleveland, the momentum right now seems to be drifting away from Gabriel and toward a different direction. And that direction keeps pointing back to Shedeur Sanders. Every time the coaches speak, every time analysts discuss the situation, the same pattern appears again. Sanders is being described as someone who could shape the offense moving forward. His confidence, his decision-making, and his composure continue to stand out in conversations about the team's future. When those qualities start dominating the narrative around a quarterback room, it usually signals that the organization is slowly preparing for a transition. So while nothing has officially been declared yet, the environment around the Browns' quarterback competition feels very different from what it did just weeks ago. Dillon Gabriel still carries respect inside the building, but respect alone does not guarantee playing time in the NFL. Opportunities follow belief, and belief inside Cleveland appears to be building around Shedeur Sanders more and more each day. For a long time, the conversation around Shedeur Sanders felt strange to many people watching the situation around the Cleveland Browns. Here was a quarterback with confidence, composure, and the ability to command an offense, yet the discussion about his role often sounded uncertain. Fans kept asking the same question over and over again. When will he actually get a real opportunity to prove himself? Because in the NFL, talent alone does not guarantee anything. Players still need the moment where the organization looks at them and says, "This is your chance. Go lead the team." And now, for the first time in a while, it feels like that moment may finally be arriving. When the Browns coaching staff recently spoke about their quarterback room, the way they described Sanders sounded different from the past. There was more conviction in their tone, more focus on what he brings to the offense. Instead of talking about him as just another option in the room, the conversation started framing him as someone who could genuinely shape the direction of the team moving forward. That kind of language does not appear by accident in NFL press conferences. Quarterbacks carry a unique weight inside any organization. Every throw they make is evaluated. Every practice rep is studied. Coaches analyze how quickly they process defenses, how confidently they communicate with teammates, and how they respond when things go wrong. Those small details slowly build a reputation inside the building. And for Shedeur Sanders, many of those internal impressions appear to be trending in a positive direction. People around the team have quietly pointed out how calm he looks when running the offense, how comfortable he appears when reading the field, and how naturally he steps into leadership moments during team activities. That composure is something coaches value more than almost anything else. The NFL is a fast, chaotic environment where quarterbacks face pressure from every angle. Defensive schemes change every week. Pass rushers collapse the pocket in seconds. The crowd noise can make communication difficult. In those moments, teams want a quarterback who stays steady and makes smart decisions.
Let me pull this down. Let me see. Premise one, Stefanski was the main issue. There are a lot of people in the industry who got their information from Kevin Stefanski, got all of their inside information from Kevin Stefanski. He gave them what they wanted to hear, what they were doing, and he'd been here for 6 years. If you can't even come to the grips and conclusion that Kevin Stefanski, the Cleveland Browns, and ownership felt that Kevin Stefanski was the main issue, you'll never be able to have an honest conversation about quarterback, because you'll always pivot to the fact that the quarterback was the issue. You'll say Andrew Berry was the issue, or it was the quarterback was the issue, or the talent was the issue. If you don't come to the conclusion or even acknowledge that Kevin Stefanski could have been the main problem with this team, you'll never have an honest conversation about quarterback. You'll always continue to do what people do. Believe because you just dialed in on quarterback, then you're never going to be able to have an honest conversation about quarterbacks, period. Because you have an out-of-date, unrealistic approach about the game of football in general, not quarterback. You don't understand the minutia of the other things that work in concert to having a good quarterback. If a person is arguing with you about why the world is flat, but they only have a third grade education when it comes to geography or geometry or any sort of earth sciences, good luck.
When coaches believe a player has that kind of mental control, their confidence in that quarterback starts growing quickly. And right now, that belief seems to be forming around Sanders inside the Browns organization. Another factor helping this momentum is the way Sanders carries himself publicly. Quarterbacks are not just evaluated for what happens on the field. They are also expected to represent the team in interviews, locker room conversations, and media appearances. A player who shows confidence without losing composure can quickly earn respect from teammates and coaches alike. Sanders has often been described as someone who understands that responsibility. He speaks with clarity, shows belief in his preparation, and approaches the position with the mindset of a leader. That kind of presence matters in a professional locker room. At the same time, the shift towards Sanders does not mean the journey has been simple. The road to becoming a starting quarterback in the NFL is rarely smooth. Every player entering the league faces questions about their readiness, their development, and their ability to adjust to the speed of professional defenses. Sanders has experienced those questions as well. Critics have debated his transition to the professional level, analysts have studied every detail of his play style, and fans have constantly argued about how quickly he should be given control of an offense. That pressure can overwhelm many young quarterbacks, but Sanders has continued pushing forward through it, and that persistence may now be starting to pay off. When an organization sees a quarterback continue working, continue improving, and continue carrying himself with confidence despite outside noise, it sends a powerful message. Coaches notice those things. Teammates notice those things. The belief that a player can handle the spotlight grows stronger every time he proves he can stay focused under scrutiny. Sanders appears to be reaching that point where the people inside the building are beginning to trust him with more responsibility. This is why the quarterback conversation in Cleveland suddenly feels more exciting than it did just weeks ago. Instead of a confusing rotation of names and possibilities, the narrative is beginning to center around a single player who might lead the offense into the future. The Browns have been searching for stability at quarterback for a long time, and whenever a team senses that it may have found the right leader, the entire energy inside the organization begins to change. Coaches start building plans around that player. Teammates rally behind that player. Fans begin imagining what the team could look like with that player guiding the offense. So while nothing has officially been finalized yet, the signs surrounding Shedeur Sanders continue to grow stronger. The language from coaches is shifting, the excitement from observers is building, and the opportunity that once seemed uncertain now feels closer than ever. What makes this situation even more fascinating is that it is not only fans who are noticing the shift inside the Cleveland Browns building. Analysts, insiders, and longtime observers of the organization have also started connecting the dots. When people who follow the team every single day begin saying the same thing, it usually means the signals coming from inside the franchise are becoming impossible to ignore. And right now, many of those voices are pointing in the same direction, toward Shedeur Sanders. One of the most interesting reactions came from well-known Browns analyst Garrett Bush, often called G. Bush by fans who follow Cleveland sports closely. When he discussed the quarterback situation, his tone sounded very confident about where things might be heading. Instead of presenting the position as a wide-open battle, he spoke as if the momentum was clearly building around Sanders. That kind of commentary caught attention quickly because analysts who cover teams closely often hear small details from practices, team meetings, and internal discussions that never fully reach the public. When someone like G. Bush sounds convinced about the direction of a quarterback room, people start listening very carefully. At the same time, another media personality covering Cleveland sports, Tony Rizzo, known by many fans simply as Riz, added even more fuel to the discussion. During conversations about the Browns' quarterback situation, he made a comment that immediately spread across fan communities. When the topic of Dillon Gabriel came up, Riz did not sound optimistic about his chances of becoming the starter. Instead, the comment sounded blunt and almost final. The message many listeners took from it was simple: Gabriel might no longer be part of the main plan moving forward. That reaction from local media is important because analysts who spend years around a franchise often understand how teams communicate indirectly. Coaches rarely step to a microphone and announce their full strategy months in advance. Instead, the hints appear slowly. Analysts then interpret those hints by comparing them with what they are hearing around the organization. When several of those voices begin reaching similar conclusions, it usually means the internal direction is becoming clearer behind the scenes. Another reason this discussion is gaining so much traction is the emotional investment Browns fans have in finally stabilizing the quarterback position. For years, the franchise has searched for a consistent leader under center. Every offseason seemed to bring another debate, another competition, another attempt to solve the most important position in football. So when a player like Shedeur Sanders begins emerging as a potential long-term answer, the excitement inside the fan base grows quickly. Supporters of the team are eager to believe that the search may finally be approaching a turning point. The media conversations around Cleveland reflect that same energy. Shows discussing the Browns are suddenly spending more time analyzing Sanders' potential and less time debating multiple quarterbacks in the room. When that shift happens in sports coverage, it usually means the storyline itself is evolving. The focus naturally gravitates toward the player who appears most likely to shape the future. And right now, that spotlight is slowly moving towards Sanders. Meanwhile, the discussion around Dillon Gabriel continues to fade into the background. Again, this does not come from criticism of his work ethic or professionalism. Analysts still acknowledge his ability and respect the effort he brings to the field. But in the fast-moving world of professional football, narratives can change quickly. Once a different quarterback starts gaining momentum inside the organization, the conversation around other players begins shrinking. Opportunities in the NFL are often determined by timing, and the current timing seems to favor Sanders more with each passing week. That is why the reactions from analysts like G. Bush and Riz have become such a major talking point. They are not simply sharing opinions, they are reflecting the direction they believe the Browns organization is moving toward. When local voices start sounding certain about a quarterback emerging as the future, fans know something important may be developing behind the scenes. It creates anticipation, speculation, and a growing sense that the team might soon reveal its true plan. So the conversation around Cleveland's quarterback room is no longer limited to coaching press conferences. It has spread across sports shows, fan discussions, and online debates. Everywhere people look, the same question keeps appearing. Are the Browns preparing to move forward with Shedeur Sanders as the centerpiece of their offense? When you step back and look at everything that has been said, everything that has been hinted at, and everything analysts are beginning to connect, the quarterback picture around the Cleveland Browns suddenly feels much clearer than it did before. A situation that once sounded like an open competition now looks like it is slowly narrowing toward one direction. The conversations from the coaching staff, the reactions from insiders, and the growing confidence from analysts all seem to point toward the same possibility. The Browns might finally be preparing to move forward with Shedeur Sanders as the quarterback who could shape the next chapter of the franchise. For Cleveland fans, this moment carries a lot of weight. The team has spent years searching for stability at the most important position in football. Season after season, the quarterback conversation kept resetting. New names entered the building, expectations rose, and then the search would start all over again. That kind of cycle can drain the momentum from any organization. So whenever a young quarterback begins showing the traits of a potential leader, composure, confidence, and the ability to command an offense, the entire franchise starts paying attention. Shedeur Sanders now finds himself standing right in the middle of that opportunity. The signals coming from the organization suggest that the coaching staff sees something special in his development. His calm presence in the pocket, his ability to read defenses, and the leadership he brings into the locker room are exactly the kinds of qualities teams want from a long-term quarterback. When a player starts building that kind of belief inside the building, the next step usually becomes inevitable. Eventually, the team has to give him the chance to prove it on the field. At the same time, the story of Dillon Gabriel reminds everyone how quickly things can change in professional football. One moment, a player is part of the conversation, and the next, the spotlight begins shifting somewhere else. That is the reality of competition at the highest level of the sport. Talent alone is not always enough. Timing, opportunity, and the vision of the coaching staff all play major roles in determining who rises and who moves on to a different path. Right now, the energy around Cleveland suggests that a new era could be quietly forming. Nothing has been officially declared yet, but the momentum surrounding Shedeur Sanders continues to grow stronger with every conversation coming out of the Browns organization. If that momentum continues building, it may not be long before the team makes its direction clear and places the future of the offense firmly in his hands. But the big question now belongs to the fans and the football world watching this story unfold. Are the Browns truly ready to move into a new chapter with Shedeur Sanders leading the offense? Or will another twist appear before the decision becomes official? This quarterback situation is evolving quickly, and every new comment from the coaching staff seems to add another piece to the puzzle. Let me know what you think about this entire situation. Do you believe Shedeur Sanders is the quarterback who can finally bring stability to Cleveland? Or do you think the Browns should still keep the competition open? Drop your thoughts down in the comments, because this conversation is only getting started. And if you want more deep NFL breakdowns, inside storylines, and the biggest quarterback dramas happening around the league, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the next video.